All right.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Yes, I hope everybody is getting comfortable. I hope everybody is relaxed, had a good day. As you see, we
Yay,
have a
look what we
guest
have.
in the building with us this evening. So everybody just sit back, relax, and we are about to get this show going. With that being said, welcome, everybody, all our returning guests, the usual suspects. Thank you so much for returning. And if this is your first time, we're a local online news show. We talk about local, national, and international news. I am Aaron Casey.
I'm Lana Quest. And my
Yes.
mic is up very I'm sorry. It's like I'm doing another kind of show. Let's turn that down.
um, Everybody, as you see, we do have a guest, Mr. Obi Ezeadi.
Azadi. Pay
Azadi, I'm sorry.
attention.
I know I'm not good with names. I apologize. I apologize.
Everyone gets it wrong. It's okay.
Mr. Obi is with us today. He is running for city council in Westminster, Colorado. Um, so for people who aren't familiar with you, if you don't mind, if you're giving us a little bit of um, who you are.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've actually watched your show a couple of times, and I'm Lana's frames. She's not wearing her
Guess what?
glasses
I
yet.
have some right here.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my name's Obi Ezeadi. I'm running for city council in Westminster, Colorado. It's a city of about 120,000 people. And so my background, I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey. I'm the son
Wow.
of Nigerian immigrants. Yeah, so I know. So I think you guys are in Boston, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Massachusetts.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Northeast connection there.
Yeah.
There it is.
And I'm first generation American. I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, grew up in New Jersey. I spent my childhood in deep poverty, and like most Black kids, I experienced violence and discrimination. Um, I was brutalized by police at 10 years old, and that
Wow.
experience taught me the importance of public service. It opened up my eyes to the realities, as a 10-year-old kid, to the realities that all of our systems and institutions are shaped by race and power, right? And I started to read books. I started to learn history. I learned how government works. I learned about redlining and segregation,
Yep.
right? And how that developed our country and cities all across the whole country. I learned about the 1%, right? And the wealth gap that disproportionately impacts my people, our people, right?
Hmm.
I learned that there are no superheroes coming to save us. It starts with
That's
us. It starts with local government, and it starts with us. And I learned that we all have unique talents that guide us out of those situations, that guide our exit strategy, right? Out of those
Hmm.
situations that millions of people are trapped in, and they're still trapped in that. Um, and my way out was through education, right? And it was through education that I eventually discovered my purpose in life, which was to challenge the status quo and redesign a better future that inspires hope, healing, courage, for real people. And that's what people need today. As we
right.
can see with the pandemic, as we can see with the economic instability of communities across the country, um, people need hope and they need some inspiration. So I got my bachelor's in psychology and biological sciences. And then I went on to get my master's in finance and marketing. I then worked my way through fairly quickly through the corporate world. I built and led large teams across many different industries. Um, I eventually caught the entrepreneurial bug, as you guys have, I'm sure, right? And I started building my own businesses, and then I met many failed, some succeeded. It taught me how to build whole organizations from scratch. It taught me the importance of equity and using equity as a way to break these generational chains of poverty, right? Um, and that was my way out. But now, as I look into the future and the present, I'm trying to translate my individual success into community advancement, right? And bring others out of those situations that they're still in, and represent to whole new groups of people. Reach
Right.
out to marginalized groups of people who never get targeted by these campaigns, right? Who never get spoken to, elevate their voice and make sure that they have people who represent them, who look like them, who grew up like them, right? And this city of Westminster, we've only had one Black counselor in 110 years. One.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
You can't even be surprised anymore. Like, to say wow is like, why are you saying wow? Did you expect something else?
True.
Like,
True.
duh,
Yeah.
of course.
And the city is about a third Hispanic, and we have only had 2 Hispanic counselors in
Wow.
that same time. So
And I'm saying wow.
and now he's saying wow.
Like,
So that's my background.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Now, see, you know what would really get a wow if you said we've had 5 Black city councilors and 10 Hispanic city councilors in 20 years. That would have been like, oh my God, wow.
Right. Yes. That is
Yeah.
a wow. Yes.
Yeah.
That would be a wow
Correct.
moment. That would be a
Right,
wow
it would
moment.
be a wow moment. So we're gonna get into the questions, but first, I want to congratulate you. You were endorsed by Joe Neguse.
Yes, I was. Yes.
That's so exciting. Like, wow. Good
Yeah,
for you.
he's one of the great congressmen we have in Congress. So was Ed Perlmutter. He also endorsed endorsed the campaign. And we've had a lot of support from legislators, from existing. So that's been good.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. That's
Yes,
great. That's
definitely.
brilliant. Okay, so as you were talking about, community and basically giving back to the community, and even on your platform, you talked about one of your priorities is listening to your residents. So, as I'm not a resident of yours, however, I am a resident and a constituent. So, what's important to me, being a resident and a constituent, is that not only do I want you to listen, I also want you to see me and to understand what my issues are, because, we can talk all we want to talk to our local politicians, but is it getting through? Like, are you really seeing what's going on in the community? So with that, what would you do to restore confidence in local governing with your residents or the residents of Westminster?
That's a great question, because right now, that confidence, there's a lack of trust, right, between the council and the people. And I feel that that's, there are a lot of reasons for that divide, but it starts with listening. It starts with the people don't feel listened to or heard.
Right.
And I think that, to answer your question, we really need to begin to reach out. And what I mean by that is, from an outreach standpoint, council governments across the country are really bad at outreach. They're really bad at going to the people, meeting people where they are, right? We tell our residents, come to this town hall, or come to this, come to City Hall on Monday night at 6 p.m. People don't have time for that.
Yeah.
People have jobs. Some have
Right.
4 jobs.
Right.
Some don't have the transportation to even get there, right? So the way I see it, as candidates, we spend tens of thousands of dollars campaigning ourselves and pushing and promoting ourselves, right? Why can't government spend a little more time in the door knocking? Go to the people, tell them what's happening to their house. We do that to get in office, but then we stop once we're in, once the campaign's over.
Exactly.
I think we need to reset the whole thing, and it starts with getting new voices on council. It starts with getting fresh perspectives, younger, more diverse candidates as well. The more people who run and start saying these things, the more it shifts the makeup of council towards those ideologies.
Right. And it probably would shift like the residents that you get. So if the council is more diverse, you're going to get a more diverse community just in general. I only say that because I looked up just the makeup of Westminster, because I wasn't familiar with that place. And, I don't know if this is current, but it looked like it was 17% non-white. So yeah, that's not a lot. Right. So, and I think, like you said, if it's a more diverse council is going to give you more diverse residents, probably, because you're going to have diverse thoughts and diverse actions, right? So
Yeah.
I
And
definitely,
and you also have equitable decision making, right?
right, right,
One of my priorities is to make sure that we establish formalized criteria for every decision that comes through council. We need to go through a set of questions, a standardized set of questions to make sure that we're intentional about equity.
right,
Because we give a lot of lip service to equity and diversity, but we don't really walk the walk.
right, right. Agree. Next question. Everyone knows water is essential to life, and yet not everyone in Colorado, and not just Colorado, not picking on Colorado, but you are from Colorado. So, and yet not everyone in Colorado has access to safe, affordable water. Drought has highlighted the inequities, aging infrastructure, and the high prices of water as well. There's often low-income households are using less water, but they're paying the same amount, in their water bills. If elected to city council, what do you propose as a solution to this issue?
Yeah, water is the hot topic right now in the city of Westminster. We have really aging infrastructure that was built 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it's in danger of failing, right? So this is definitely a topic that's top of mind. And I believe that the solution here is to ensure that we stop thinking about water as a city. Each city plans in their own city and start having more regional conversations.
Right.
The the lack of more source of water, right? So we have a finite water source, and we live in a semi-arid climate that's only getting worse over time, and the impacts of climate change is only worsening that.
Right.
The whole West is a drought right now.
Yeah.
Houses are burning down, whole cities are burning. We need a more innovative solution to the water problem that is not just water rates, levels of water rates, and they're debating right now, okay, well, one side wants less, one side wants more to pay for the infrastructure.
Right.
So my position on that is, well, let's start thinking outside the box. What are other ways that we must fix the infrastructure, but there has to be other ways that we can help to fund it. There's enough wealth out there that just needs to be placed under local control, right? And not profit mongering Wall Street firms. So for example, we take out these high interest bonds to fund the infrastructure fix, right? But there are concepts like a public bank, that exist. What if we establish a public bank in Westminster that protects the public interest? It gives us a way of raising revenue without raising taxes. And it would allow Westminster to create sound investments, not just for water, but housing and roads and whatever we need. And the way it works is you put your city's revenues in its own established entity, bank, right? And then you can loan to yourself and give yourself favorable terms, right? So rather than paying it back in 3 to 5 years, you can pay yourself back in 10 to 20 years. So you get to raise rates a little bit each year to pay that back. But some states like North Dakota have done this for a whole century. They've had their own state level bank.
Wow.
And in 2008, when the 2008 financial crisis happened, North Dakota was the only state that withheld, that was not really affected because it was independent from these big giant Wall Street banks, because it had its own system. So I think just and whether it's that idea or whatever else may exist, right? It just starts with thinking outside the box and working regionally.
Right. I love these interviews because you learn so much, right? There's always something that you learn in each of these interviews. So I'm just going to thank you for that. And I just had a crazy thought. I'm like, wow, droughts are all over the West and fires. So if we're having a problem with water, eventually, how are we going to be putting out these fires? Like that's just like I don't know. That's just a thought. Last question. The pandemic has ravaged small local businesses. Of recent, many of these businesses have started to reopen. However, they are having a difficult time finding staff. More than likely, it's due to wages. What are your views regarding raising the minimum wage? And do you believe that raising the wage will get people back to work?
I do. So this issue with employment, as a businessman myself,
Right.
right? It's important to upgrade and modernize and evolve your business model over time, right? So when the market says, oh, so when you put up a job a job position and you can't find people, it's not the people, don't blame the people who, and you hear all the excuses from Republicans, right? Well, they're not working, they don't want to work, they're lazy, etc. That's not true. What's really happening here is the wages are too low. Paying low wages is only a temporary benefit to small business owners, right? It generates economic hardships and restricts people's abilities to contribute in areas beyond work. The answer out of that is to raise the minimum wage. $15 an hour, by the way, is still not a living wage.
It really is not.
It should actually be around $24 right now. That's a living wage. And when you think about the whole scope of the country, right? So 67% of Americans support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, right? You have millionaires who make 5% of the general population, but 48% of Congress, the same Congress that gave itself 9 raises, right? The last time the minimum wage was raised, so the last time the minimum wage was raised was 2007. And since then, Congress has given themselves 9 raises in their own salaries, right? The current minimum wage falls below the poverty line by more than $2,000 every year, annually, for a 2-person household, right? And so that's more than $6,000 for 3 people and more than $11,000 for 4 people.
Right.
So I think that there's definitely an opportunity here to ensure that minimum wage workers are taken care of, and there's millions of them. A lot of them live in Westminster, and I think that so, for example, in Westminster, 40 to 60% of whatever is left over from your income is spent on the high cost of housing, just on housing.
Right.
Right. So now add to that bill, add utilities, add transportation, add foods, healthcare.
Yeah, you're in the red. There's just you
Yeah.
can't do it. There's no more left. There's only so much you can go around.
Yeah, so you don't have enough to save. You're definitely not saving. Right.
Can't get a
You're
house.
definitely not investing. Right. You're definitely not buying a house.
Right.
So I think when we look at each issue, there's always a holistic picture to take into account, the comprehensive picture of it all. And that's the way to solve these things. And it's never one, this big excuse of, well, people are just lazy. Like, no, it's your business model. Change it, evolve it so that you can raise your wages, and then you'll see people flock to your application.
Right. Good answer.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Obi. Mr. Obi. What do you have, Casey? Those are my
All
questions.
right. Again, thank you so much for giving us a couple moments of your time and coming on the show and talking with us today. Thank you. I definitely appreciate that. We both do. But my first question, as a young person in Westminster, some of your voters will be a little bit older than you. And what are your plans, or what will you do to help the older population in your city?
That's a good question. I think it starts with making sure that they can retire comfortably. And one way of ensuring that is that their cost of living is not out of control, right? So seniors, low income, fixed income, they struggle with cost of living. And right now, cost of living across food, healthcare, housing, everything that we just talked about, that's through the roof, and they can't afford it. So I think the priority there is to ensure that they understand that I'm here, that the council, and it's pulling the rest of the council together too,
Right.
because I'm only one vote, right? And there's 7 councilors, but it's making sure that as a unit, we can vote on issues that will help to reduce their cost of living, so that they're not there working 2-3 jobs past retirement age.
Nice.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. My next question: as a candidate running for the city council seat, what are some of the things that set you apart from everybody else? Could you explain that a little bit?
Besides what I look like, there are a few
Getting that
things,
out the way.
Yeah, so let's get that out the way. I think my lived experience, I think we need more counselors with lived experience. I grew up in poverty, grew out of poverty. That helps because that gives you an engine. We need more elected officials with an engine that drives them, and not power, right? So I don't seek power. I seek to make sure others don't experience what I have, right?
Right.
That they don't have to. So that's my engine. I think we don't have enough of those people with an engine. And then my professional background is distinctive. So I think that I've worked in transportation, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in technology. I've worked in a lot of different industries that are critical to our city's recovery. And that is uniquely different. Most public officials, as you know, have more of a nonprofit background. They might have some business background, but I'm also a small business owner too, right? So I have a lot of varied experience that combined with my personal lived experience, it gives me a view of the world that I think reflects how people live, and reflects what they're how they can relate to government, right? So I think that can help to engage more people into government as well. For my campaign, for example, we're trying to expand the electorate. So we've targeted various groups of people that are never targeted. We have volunteers from youth all the way up to older ages, and that's important. And I think when you come to council with that perspective of the world, that worldview, then you start to do things like promote cultural community events, right? You start to diversify food options. And so when I look at the restaurants in Westminster, it's very white.
Right.
Like, to be honest, that's not, and most people here, they go to surrounding neighborhoods to eat, or they go to Denver, the city of Denver, to go, because we don't have enough food options, good ones. But with culture and with diversity, and we can bring in mom and pop restaurants of super high quality, and it'll keep people here. It'll build the economy here.
Right. Right.
But that's what you get with a new, different worldview. And that's some of my priorities, is to make sure that we can diversify entertainment, the range of ethnic backgrounds that our food industry and our recreational industry has. We need a theater, for example. A community theater would be nice, where people can come and it'll unite so to your question earlier, Lana, one way of rebuilding that trust is to literally make sure we can build neighbors again, and how do we build neighbors again? You bring them out.
Right.
We should have things to do, and theater would be a great way of connecting folks, of taking pride in where you live.
Nice. I like that. And I say it all the time. We're for the people. We want to educate our viewers on knowing, who could be a benefit for them. And his lived experience, everything he said, I know a lot of our viewers have gone through similar situations. Other people have gone through those similar situations, the good and bad. And to have somebody that's in office that understands what we're going through helps, because then they can make laws that will help us, that will give us a leg up. And a lot of the things that he said is a lot of things that we talk about. So everybody in Westminster, please. I hope you're watching this, and everybody, if you know somebody in there or Colorado, something, please share this video, and listen to what he has to say. He said a lot of good points, um, but as well, I have one more question. We've interviewed a lot of different people on this show, um, and out of all the people that we've interviewed, excuse me, um, you're the first person that I've seen that has sustainability as something on your platform. Can you explain what sustainability is and how having that would benefit the voters in your city?
Yeah, so it's surprising to me and it's frustrating, right, that I'm the first
Right.
that has had
Yeah.
that. That's shocking because as you both know, we are in a crisis, a
Right.
huge crisis, a global crisis, and we don't have time for these politicians to catch up, right? And realize that, oh wait, action is needed now. So to me, sustainability is actually threefold, where there's the climate piece, but then there's the financial piece, um, and the accountability piece, right? So with climate change, the first thing we need to do is increase transparency. I think that is one of the biggest blockers to most people, because when we talk about carbon footprints and all of that, right,
Mhm.
we don't have enough. So a great analogy that I like to use is with food. A long time ago, we didn't have the nutrition facts,
Right.
right, on the back of food, and people were like, well, I want to eat healthy, but I have no idea what I'm eating. It's the
Right.
same thing with climate change. If we increase transparency, so carbon labels, right, making sure that citizens understand, well, if I buy this product has X
That's a good
carbon footprint,
idea. Oh my
right?
gosh,
Hmm.
that's amazing. That's a
Right.
great idea.
So if we do more
Yeah.
things like that, and those are small
Yes.
steps,
Right.
but most people, to do something big requires you to take small steps of action, right? And over time, when you add it all up, it looks like, oh wow, I did this huge thing. But that's because
Hmm.
you took tangible, actionable steps along the way. One way I think is to make sure we increase transparency, and that can help most citizens understand what they're doing, what they're buying,
Right.
and can change
Right.
their behavior, change their habits.
Right.
Wow.
But there's so many other things too with climate change. The city itself, most cities are the biggest um, perpetrators, right, of
Right.
climate. So when we talk about what we need to change, it should always start with the city government, because there's so much the city government owns, that they own building, they own land, they they waste energy in all sorts of ways, and they use fossil fuels
Mhm.
in all sorts of ways. We can take a lot of steps as a city, just changing how we operate, right? Changing it all. And that shows the community, oh, so they're walking the walk, right? They want us
Mhm.
to change our behaviors, but they're showing us how, you know? So yeah, it's really important. And it's really important to me because um, climate actions um, impact communities of color the
Yeah.
most,
Yeah.
right? So systemic
Hmm.
racism, it determines systemic racism, yeah, and you both know this, right? So systemic racism determines who benefits and who suffers from
Mhm.
human activities that produce harmful gases that
Mhm.
warm the earth, right,
Mhm.
and degrade our environment. And black and Hispanic Americans get exposed to more air pollution than they
Mhm.
actually produce.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, white Americans experience better air quality than the
Mhm.
national average, even
Right.
though their activities are the source of most pollutants, right? So one
Right.
way of so one way of ensuring that we address climate change is to go back to that to what I mentioned about equitable decision making, right?
Mhm.
That formalized list of questions. One question should always be, how does this project or development or whatever it is impact communities of color? Geographically, by race, by income, whatever we'll figure out what those questions are, but we should always ask that question, because that's a question that's never asked.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the interesting thing about that piece is that, the white communities, sorry, Casey, the white communities
No.
are producing the most of this that's affecting the Black and brown communities, but then they turn around and say it's the way the Black and brown communities live or eat, or it's in our DNA, but none of that has been true this whole time.
Right?
It's like we're not making ourselves sick. No, it's not our barbecue that's doing it. That's not what it is. Y'all putting these buildings and the projects next to these roadways. You're taking down our trees. We don't have any parks. We don't have any sprinklers. You're killing us. So absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for government to give voice to the silenced working class, right? It's so important that we ensure that we make sure that people don't feel unworthy, unsafe, unprotected in their own community.
Right.
The sooner we give voice to our silenced groups, the better we can repair those relationships across race, across gender, across sexuality, across income, right? And have that cross-racial solidarity that we need to build a community and work together again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. Well, that right there ends the question portion. Thank you again for answering these hard-hitting questions, and hopefully the people that tuned in, your future voters, hopefully they learned something today. I know I definitely did. But with that being said, pass it right back off to Miss Lana.
Yes, we're gonna do the speed round, then we're gonna get you out of here. And these
are the frames. Those are the frames. That's it.
And these are the very important. These are the most important questions of tonight. How many cups of coffee do you drink a day?
0.
Oh.
0. That's crazy. I'd be like, well, I have 2, but I guess I'm on the low end compared to some people. Like, what in the world?
My wife has like 20.
Right. See, that's what I mean. I'm on the low end. Like 2 is nothing in the morning, and then in the afternoon, 20 cups. She must be flying all day. It's like, oh my God, that's crazy. Is it possible to throw a surprise party for a psychic?
Yes.
Sure.
I can explain if you want.
Oh yeah, no, I do. Yeah, explain.
Because I think a psychic has to be intentional, right? So they read your mind when they want to. So you can, if they're not expecting you to surprise them, you can easily throw them a surprise party because they're not reading your mind.
That's true.
Or
you can program your mind and say, she ain't getting no surprise party.
That's even smarter. That's even smarter.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
you could trick them.
What party? If you could be any animal, what would it be, and why?
An eagle, because I've always wondered what it feels like to just fly and see entire cities and landscapes.
Yeah, and eagles are the boss because, like, you could be a pigeon and be flying around, but it's different. The difference between an eagle and a pigeon. Who is your favorite cartoon character and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say Spider-Man, the one from the 90s. The cartoon, the Fox. That was a Fox Saturday mornings.
Yes,
Casey probably knows that.
Yes,
you watched that, Casey?
One.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good
that was
one.
The best Spider-Man. Yeah.
I have to agree.
Okay. What annoys you the most? You can't say Republicans.
Republicans don't annoy me. It's just some of them. Just some of them that are in
right. That's
power.
True. Yeah.
What annoys me the most is Citizens United.
Mm.
The law, it put money into politics and it has destroyed our democracy.
Right.
We need to get money out of politics, and I think that can level the playing field for a lot of folks, especially new folks who want to get into politics, so that they're not having to battle millions of dollars from dark money.
Yeah, get that dark money out of there. Yeah.
Corporations are not people.
Yeah, that's Casey's mantra. That's Casey's mantra. We're not gonna let him talk about it, but he'll go on and on. That's his thing, right? That's his
Casey,
jam.
we can have a beer one day.
Definitely.
Casey's jam. If you could trade lives with anyone for the day, who would it be?
Stevie Wonder.
That's
Nice.
interesting.
I like that.
I've loved Stevie Wonder for a long time. My favorite song in the whole world of all genres is I'm New. Stevie Wonder's it came out like 30, 40 years ago. But his life, I'm not sure if you've seen like
Feel free
his
to sing. Feel free to sing it because we've had
Right?
Alan Allison sang and Lauren Hubbard sang. So, feel free. Jesse would not sing for us though, but
it's a great song. It goes, I don't know. See,
We got we was
I'm
there.
so tongue deaf.
almost.
You almost got me. You almost got me. But no, Stevie's life is incredible. He went through so much. Same with Ray Charles, and doing all of that without seeing, right? Without sight. That takes a lot. So I would want to just switch with him and understand just his memories, right? of how he got through what he got through and how he's still alive. And yeah, so he's a strong person.
Absolutely. What would you do with 15 minutes of fame?
That's a good question. 15 minutes of fame?
Yeah.
How much fame?
Oh gosh.
Let's qualify it.
How much fame? I don't know. Okay, celebrity fame. Let's say 15 minutes of celebrity fame. Is that
I would use my platform to make a speech. So I'd call all the press together, right? And across the whole world and have a press conference. And I would use it to make sure we talk about voting rights, right? And make sure we educate folks on voting rights and getting money out of politics.
Nice.
Because if we don't do that, situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to take away our voice. They're trying to take away our ability, our right to vote. It's the most important thing to me in Congress right now. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Congress, but if these states continue to make up their own voting laws that suppress the vote, that is that is how the United States destroys itself, right?
Yeah.
That's the end game. And that's
is.
not what we need. That's the wrong end game, right?
Right.
That's the Thanos. I'm not sure if you guys watch
That's
Marvel.
the hunger. That's the hunger game.
That's the Thanos snap, and that destroys democracy. So I would use that moment to really push for our elected officials to do something about voting rights, which will probably start with getting rid of the filibuster.
Yeah.
Right. Get rid of the filibuster so we can actually get things done before we lose all these chambers of Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My gosh. Okay, last question. If you could erect a statue in Westminster, who would it be of and why?
My daughter.
Oh.
She's 7 years old. And when I think about politics and really just the future of society, I think about our youth. We should all be doing everything in our power to make sure that our children that they have a better life than what we did, right? We need to give them more than was given to us. And I feel like if all elected officials had that engine or that like North Star of, hey, is this policy making life better for future generations? It's a very simple mental model, right? If they had that, then we would have a lot more prosperity in the world. We would have a lot more long-lasting, sustainable policies that will take us through. But we don't have that, and that's a shame.
That is true, and it is very unfortunate. But some politicians are very selfish. As long as their family and their kids are taken care of,
that's all that
nothing else matters.
Yeah.
So Casey, I am finished with my questions.
All right. Well, before we wrap this up, again, thank you for coming on the show with us.
Yes.
I have one more question. And after you answer the question, if you could let people know where they can follow you, social medias, website, anything like that, would be awesome. But my question is, after everything that we talked about, after all the questions you answered, what's the one thing that you would like people to take away from tonight? It could be something that we talked about, or something we didn't talk about. But what's the one thing you would like your voters to know?
I would want them to know that our campaign is not simply about helping people in the minority. It's basically saying that we have a shared belief system that people in the minority can help us all, right? That's really what the three of us have been saying this whole time.
Right.
And it can be misconstrued, right? That, oh, he's only here for XYZ. But that's not what we're saying. We're saying people in the minority can help everyone, right? And I believe that it shouldn't matter who you are, what you look like, what you identify as, who you love, whether you're fixed income or wealthy. You need to be able to live where you work with dignity and opportunity, right? That's what my campaign's about. And that's what I hope that people will get out of this.
Yes. Now, tell everyone what they can do to help you and where they can find you and follow you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so right now there's 6 weeks left in the campaign till election day. It's coming up. We are behind in our fundraising. So we need people to donate. So if you go to voteob.com, that's voteobi.com, you can find the donation link and just donate whatever you can. Everything adds up, everything counts. And we're facing a lot of competition, a lot of division. We're facing hate, we're facing discrimination. I get messages all the time of like, don't do this. You shouldn't be doing this. Or, someone called me a slave when I first joined the race, back in February. Things like that. And it's going to take solidarity. It's going to take people power. And that's what we're building with this campaign. It's a people powered campaign. And we are reinventing how to campaign here locally. Please join the movement. Please volunteer for us. So find my information, reach out to me, and please donate.
Yes, we will be getting that message out in these next 6 weeks. Thank you, Obi, for coming. Thank you so much for taking the time, because you're busy. Like, it's only 6 weeks left. I didn't even realize that. So really thank you. Appreciate it.
Also vote for your school boards, vote for your city councils, because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. As we can see now, what's going on in these local governing bodies, what they're doing in these states. So absolutely. So thank you, Obi. Enjoy your night, your weekend. Enjoy your daughter and your family.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Lana.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Have a blessed.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody out there, we'll see you guys next week. Please tune in.
Bye-bye.
Peace.